what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Chasing Dreams podcast with Charlie and Justin. We are on episode 61. It's pouring down snow, can hardly see in front of us, and it's a beautiful Saturday morning nonetheless.
Yes, it is.
So how's training going for you, buddy?
Pretty good. Been dealing with some, nagging, muscle joint issues.
Yeah, welcome to the 30s.
Right. Relax. I got a hamstring. I don't know if it's pulled or if it's just balled up. I'm not stretching enough. We're not sure. But so working on that. Nonetheless, 45 miles so far in January.
And it's January 16th today.
Yep.
So 45 miles.
Yep.
That's awesome.
I got 3 in this morning. I'm going to do 3 tonight. I didn't do any yesterday. I was on a house fire last night pretty late. By the time I got home and then got some food in me, it was like 10 o'clock, and I was like, I am tired.
Cool. Very cool. So you're kind of finding a nice, unique blend as far as time allocation and energy allocation goes to blending your strength training with your, I guess, endurance training.
Yeah, it's more endurance because it's not what we're training for is not really a race. It's just a long walk.
Low intensity endurance, I guess, would be a good word.
I think this is like the transitioning point where after this first event, we'll transition into more higher intensity and running. We're anticipating having a considerable weight loss by May, and that'll limit the impact on the joints, basically. Yeah. So
you're down about 7-ish this week?
8.
8? Okay.
Yeah. So that's a big breakthrough I was going to talk about during the update here is, it's been like what? Conservatively speaking, 6 months, really, since we've had any kind of drop significantly. Got on the scale because you asked me to get you a midweek weight. Got on the scale on Wednesday and was down 5 pounds, and then got on the scale this morning and was down 3 more. So
made a couple nutrition changes, but nothing substantial. I was very simple, and you kind of been doing what you've been doing all along training wise, so that was good to see.
Yeah,
and then. I was there's a lot of literature that supports the type of training you're doing right now as being the best for longevity and health.
Right.
And it stems from an evolutionary perspective. So back when we were cavemen and we had to find food, kill food, gather food.
Right.
It was all low intensity, but high frequency and high volume type of training, more or less. Like you're constantly walking every day, hunting animals, trying to gather berries or whatever you had to do to survive. And that may be counterintuitive to kind of what I preach from a physique perspective. So like my athletes in the gym, it's about training hard, training high intensity, and then getting out. Part of that's a product of life. You can't stay at the gym for several hours a day.
Right.
But it correlates and translates better to sports specific stuff. Like sports are very high intensity for a short duration.
Right.
But from a longevity and health perspective, a lot of the research supports that doing things for low intensity throughout the entire day. So just, bouts of exercise in a somewhat low intensive state for, every 15 minutes, every 20 minutes, every hour, whatever, seems to be really beneficial for people. And like, again, it comes from, a biological perspective, I think.
Right. I agree. But overall, I guess the last couple of weeks, man, have been really good. Even though, even with the hamstring issue that I've been honestly stressed out about because I couldn't figure out what was wrong.
Yeah.
I started noticing that I was spending, I usually spend 15 minutes before my workout stretching, just kind of getting everything loosened up and then get into the workout. And then the first couple sets of every movement is like a stretch itself, really low weight, just kind of go through the motions and feel it. And then we get into the workout.
Mm-hmm.
But I just could not get loosened up. And I train in the morning, so it's tough. And then towards the end of the day, by the time it was time for cardio, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Like literally fine. Like my leg don't hurt, my hip don't hurt, knees not hurting. So I was like, it was kind of confusing to me. So then a couple of days ago, I switched and did cardio in the morning, and I couldn't get it all in the time frame before I went to work. So I was like, that doesn't make sense. Because it was literally the pain was just, I couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
It was just the pace was too slow and wasn't able to. So that's how I kind of came to, I think we have just a pulled muscle or something. So you suggested some stretches. So we're going to see how that works. But
Yeah, I agree with the morning thing playing a role because for me, just speaking from firsthand experience, getting up early and then being at the gym and beginning training within probably about an hour,
yeah,
maybe a little bit longer than waking up. It may not be an ideal scenario physiologically for some people, but I feel good doing it. I have pretty high energy. The only thing that I have to kind of navigate through is how to make sure that I'm properly warmed up
right,
because not only in the literal sense because it's freezing outside,
right,
but then when I get to the gym, my body has just laid dormant for 8 hours, so I need to make sure that it's like up and moving. And I do pretty extensive amount of dynamic stuff and mobility stuff beforehand, which I've talked about on air several times. I know you likewise do the same, but I just feel so much better the more movement I have. Like for me, to be honest, it's best in the summer when I'm like literally warmed up. And then not only that, but I love training after doing some form of cardio. And I use that term loosely because it's not cardio in the sense of losing fat, but I love like running or doing something before lifting because I always feel so much better.
right.
One of the things I've done lately is I have this group training session that I do on Sundays, and it's all movement development based. It lasts a little under 2 hours, usually about an hour and 45 minutes. And I have athletes come in from all over. I mean, heck, one of my athletes plays football at San Diego University out in California. Now, he lives in Pittsburgh, so when he's home on break, he comes in, but more or less you could say he's flying from across the country to come. So on Sundays, I have this group, and we do all this movement development. And I like to usually do it with the kids, at least to a degree. I'm not doing the whole session, but some of the like movement patterns and drill works, I'm kind of showing them and going through it with them. And then after the class is over, then I have my second leg day because right now I've been training legs on Wednesdays and Sundays. So when I work out on Sundays, when I actually do my strength training, I feel so much better now that all my joints are mobilized and the tissue's warmed up and physically I have a little bit of a sweat going. It just makes everything so much better. So I think for you, getting up early and then being within a gym setting pretty quickly.
Like less than 30 minutes.
Yeah. So I think that sometimes it just takes, whether it's a neurological connection to the muscle or whatever, just being a little bit more self-aware of how your body feels early on.
Right.
I mean, that's one thing that's made a lot of improvements for me in my training is being able to know how my body feels, not just in the recoverability sense, but like going into the session. Like how do I feel right now? Am I sore? Do I need to audible maybe my training a little bit because I don't feel like this is a good idea right now or whatever?
That's actually a really good point. So the audible, I've learned everything I got from you basically. And I do everything in at least 6 to 10 week increments. So the last workout phase I planned on it being 10 weeks. We got to 8. That's when my hamstring started acting up. I went up from, I don't know how my book in front of me, but I believe I went up from 305 to 345 for sets of 8 on the squat. And from what you said and a couple other people have said, that my range of motion has improved drastically, meaning dang near parallel on the squat. So that was a big milestone. So, but the audible is because of the issue, I decided to go into the next phase, change things up, and take a leg specific day out and spread out legs throughout the week. So, and get away from squatting for a little while, get away from the heavy leg press session that I did twice a week. And I think that'll help as well. So basically I'm just going to do hamstrings and calves and then just minor accessory stuff when it comes to like RDLs and the deadlift motion in general. So,
and sometimes you don't need to change the destination. You just need to change the car you're driving.
Exactly.
Because with me, what I do, essentially I do the same thing. I go by feel and how my body feels. Now I usually go typically about 3 to 4 months.
Yeah, yours is
so a little bit longer than yours. Mine's usually like 12 to 16 weeks ish for like training cycles, but that is a product of past history and by chance. That's not like I planned it out. So when I do a training cycle, I don't go through these phases where I plan to be done at 12 weeks or I'm going to be done at 16 weeks. What I do is I set up my training phase, whether it's like a heavy, low volume phase or whatever, and I will do that for X amount of weeks. Now, it just so happens that that's about where my body starts to break down, or I start to, like, progress starts to stall, and then I'll change everything full scale.
Yeah.
But within that, what people don't usually see are the little nuance changes that I make. So I keep my training style the same for 12 weeks, but 3 or 4 different times on my pressing day, I changed out exercises. Like, I did incline dumbbell for, X amount of weeks, let's say 6 weeks, and then 7th, 8th week, and 9th week, I didn't make progress.
Right.
So for the last 2 weeks, I changed it. I altered the exercise. So similar movement pattern, but just different way to reach it. So I kind of make changes pretty regularly throughout the program, but it looks the same for an extended period of time.
Right.
And then you have to find balance, because like you and I talked about before, whenever you're doing a training program, or it doesn't have to be just with training, it could be with life, you have to do something long enough to know if it's working or not.
Right.
I think that people run into that issue a lot in the fitness world, where they try something, doesn't show them the results they expect immediately, so then they change courses. And it's like, that could have been the best thing for you. You just got to stick to it long enough to see.
And that was like a topic that I had thought of, actually, is the really hammering on that, because, what I say, like 6 months, I went without losing a pound.
Mm-hmm.
And it was mentally, it was kind of tough, because I have plenty to lose. You know what I mean? My body weight was bouncing between 345 and 341 for like 6 months. And now some people would say that that's a win, because you went through Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's, and didn't go up drastically or down drastically. But I don't care about the holidays.
Mm-hmm.
The goal and the plan is the same, regardless of whose birthday it is or what holiday it is. I mean,
yeah.
I may take a small, minute break for the day and kind of eat whatever with family or whatever, but I got up and worked out every holiday this year. You know what I mean? So like, it's not that's not a concern for me, really.
Making progress isn't convenient.
Yes, exactly. So
I feel like there's a sliding scale there.
Yeah.
So like, the more progress you want to make, like, you can add convenience to your life. So holidays, birthdays, if you
Right.
want to go off your meal plan or whatever, that's completely within people's control. But you have to understand that there's a sliding scale there.
Yeah.
So the more conveniencing you make things, or the more comfortable, that's a better word.
Yeah.
The more comfortable you make things, oftentimes the less likely, or the less further towards your goals you're going to reach.
Right.
So if I make things more comfortable, I get further and further away from where I'm trying to get to.
Yeah. And I think comfortability is the key. I love playing in that discomfort zone, like where I don't like it. Like,
Yeah.
Like this morning, out doing my cardio this morning, started snowing on the way to the track. By the time I got about a mile in, we had some accumulation, and all the little wetness, like the track was wet and it froze. I fell 3 times this morning. I loved it. Like, because now I'm wet, and it's just another level of, okay, you got to get out of your comfort zone more, because like last year when I was running, I didn't fall at all.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously I've been too comfortable for too long.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's how my brain processed it, because I would have gotten upset about that, or, made an excuse to be done.
Yep.
So there's just no way to get around it. You have to get uncomfortable to get where you want to go.
Well, I think that you're a prime example of that, just because of the length of your journey, number one. And then number two, and probably more important, the starting point of your journey. You got to the starting point for this journey because you wanted to be comfortable all the time.
Yeah.
And that's, you've been adamant about that, is you were too comfortable for too long. And then, so your whole shtick here is based on you finding the courage, because it's partly courage, and the fortitude to say, okay, I've been comfortable for, 27 years, 28 years of my life. Now I need to get uncomfortable for the rest of it.
Yeah.
Which you've done, and that's kind of multifaceted. I don't think that's just weight loss specific.
Right.
I mean, think about starting a podcast. Like, one of the things that you were talking about prior to this is, you said, I don't know if I'd be good at it because, I don't talk very fluently and I might get nervous, or I don't know if, like, it's easier when it's you and me on the track, but then when it's you and me, but we're also podcasting to thousands of listeners, then it's different. or like, becoming a firefighter or anything that you've done. It's all been based on me trying to become the opposite of what I was when I was 526 pounds and super comfortable.
Yeah, and I still get in my own head too. Like, when I was 526 pounds, I wouldn't go to the store because I was like not comfortable with myself.
Yeah.
Like, so we would go early in the morning or really late at night when there wasn't a whole lot of people in the store.
The discomfort was there, and the opportunity to face it was there, but you just avoided it.
Avoided it completely. And so now, becoming a firefighter, that was a step for me because you guys all tell me I've done a really great job and how proud of me that you are, and and it's very much appreciated, but I don't see it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I'm starting to see it a little bit, but so becoming going and joining the fire department, and I honestly, in my head, when I put the application and sat down with the chief and was talking to him while they voted on me at the same time, I honestly anticipated him saying no. I figured he'd have a nice way to say it, but he would say, no, too big, too old, whatever. I didn't know. In my head, I just wasn't sure. And then I left the fire station that night with gear. And I was like, all right, that happened. Check. So that was like a momentum for me, right? And then fast forward to when I got certified, then I started training, doing the functional firefighting training at the fire station. I didn't know that I could do the job, to be honest. And that's when I started following that page on Instagram, Fit to Fight Fire. And ironically enough, the very first post that I seen of theirs was Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, and I wear that around my neck every day.
You hashtag it all the time.
Yeah.
That's been one of your things for a while,
right?
Since I met you.
Yeah, so I wear that around my neck every day, and I fell in love with the fact that they put that first. And I was like, this is really cool. And so I started following everything they do, and like really trying to move my fitness training in the direction of functional fitness, not just functional firefighting fitness, just functional fitness in general.
Yep. And
fast forward to my first actual fire where I got to, do something other than be outside and carry tools and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I was nervous, like very nervous going down there because I wasn't sure that I was even going to be able to help or do,
Of course.
And then we get there and we get on the fire ground and the incident command starts telling us what we're going to be doing and giving out, just the basics of orders. And we get down to it, and I was keeping up with old salty firemen, you know what I mean? Like, and I was like, all right. So that was a huge step for me because now I'm starting to see that, I'm still in my head, but I'm still in my head, but physically I'm improving, daily. And I need to start accepting that. And I think I'll get better.
Well, I think that the biggest motivator for me, and I think a lot of other people, I think that a lot of people are motivated more so by progress than they are by lack of progress.
Yes.
So maybe that initial motivation comes from not being where you want to be, not looking the way you want to do, not feeling the way you want to feel. But ultimately, I don't think it's sustainable unless you are seeing progress. So I can look at the mirror, not like how I look, and get really quickly motivated. But I feel like that's acute. It's not long lasting. It's just very quick and fleeting. But what's going to keep you motivated is when you continue to see progress. Mm-hmm. So when you were 526 pounds, you have to get to the point where there's anger or frustration or unhappiness, and that's going to keep you going. If you continue through this process, unhappy, angry, spiteful, disgusted, whatever, you would have quit a long time ago. What kept you going was the fact that you're seeing progression all the time. So I think that that's definitely huge. And like for me, that's my thing too, because I need to be fueled by positivity in my own regard. If I'm doing something and I'm not making progress out of it, sometimes I get frustrated and think, well, this is a waste of my time if I'm not benefiting from it, so I'm done.
Right.
I think so many people do that. Sometimes they may pull the trigger too soon, but I definitely understand why people don't see results in one particular area of their life, so they change course really, really quickly.
Right. And it's, and I I like really enjoy like the people that say things to me, that like people tell me I'm an inspiration or I motivate them to get after it. I really enjoy that because it goes right in line with what I want to do.
Yeah, of course.
Help people. You know what I mean? Like I say I want to help people, and I feel like that's a really vague term, a very vague explanation of what I want in life. But literally, that's what I want. Like, if I can physically help you, like carry your couch into your house, I want to do that. If I can emotionally help you, like be there as a shoulder to cry on, or a sounding board for an issue that you're having, I want to do that. If I can physically help you by putting the fire out that's in your house, I want to do that. If I can financially help you by buying your groceries for the week, I want to do that. That's the kinds of things that drives me. So, and that's what driving me to keep this journey going, because I know that at 526 pounds, not just physically but mentally, I couldn't contribute to society.
Yeah, you can't help anybody until you help yourself first.
Right, exactly. So that's it too. Like, so it all comes back to like last week's subtopic, selfishness. Being selfish a little bit is help myself so I can help everybody.
100%.
So
I agree. So what we're going to do is let's go to a commercial break real quick. When we come back, I want to touch on the fighting fires too.
Yeah.
Because I think that's something cool now that you've actually fought some structure fires.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's like the true baptism into firefighting is when you actually go on site and put out a fire like you see in the movies. Yeah. So I want to touch on that and get your insights when we come back from a commercial break.
As listeners of the Chasing Dreams podcast, we know that you demand the highest quality at all times. If you're interested in quality, look no further than Beast Mode Baking. Beast Mode Baking aims to bring the highest quality, creative, and of course delicious baked goods to your home with nationwide shipping. All orders need to be pre-ordered to ensure they're packed fresh and shipped out to you as soon as possible. Beast Mode Baking offers a flat rate of $15 for shipping due to the size and weight of the cookies and doughs. So if you're interested in Beast Mode Baking, please contact CEO Shannon Knorr. That's at SKNORR13 on Instagram and order your delicious baked goods today, because every time you support them, you're supporting the podcast as well.
And we are back from our commercial break. So Justin, before we went to a commercial, I mentioned that I wanted to continue to talk about the firefighting stuff because I felt like that's a pretty big milestone, like fighting your first structure fires.
Yeah.
Because, again, that's more or less when you become a real firefighter. It's like a bodybuilder. You can say that you're a bodybuilder and train and eat and diet the way they do, but ultimately your christening as a real, quote-unquote, real bodybuilder is when you actually get on stage.
Right.
So talk us through what that was like to finally do that for the first time.
It was really cool. I mean, it was, like I said, nerve-wracking, because you don't know. Like, you don't know what to expect. Like, I've been in, controlled environments and stuff, but you really, truly don't know what to expect until you get there and it's happening. And they tell you all the time, like, all of my leaders, at the fire station tell me all the time during training and just during conversations and stuff, that no two fires are the same. So there's no way to tell, there's no way to tell your probie or your new guy that's with you what to expect. Because that's the one thing I do. Like, when we're on the truck and we're on our way to scene, I ask the lieutenant that's with me or the officer that's going to be in charge, what do you want from me?
Yeah.
Because that's really, I'm here to help. So whatever you want from me, whatever you need from me, whatever it is, just tell me and I'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they don't know. Nobody knows. Until you get there, nobody knows. So,
you can't go in with a plan when you have a fire.
Right. There's no plan of attack. Exactly. Because fire reacts differently all the time. So my first structure fire was just a few days ago. And we were mutual aid with a neighboring township. And we show up with, our truck and three guys, 3 entry guys, me and 2 lieutenants. And we go down to the OIC, the guy that's in charge, and he quickly gives us our orders, and we just get to work. So we get to myself and Jared, who's been on the podcast a couple of times, get to the back of the house where we were told to make entry and get after it. Basically, I ended up backing up somebody that was already there. And when he handed me the nozzle and told me to go inside, I had a second where I needed to ask a couple questions. You know what I mean? And I could have very well just did and just went and possibly created a situation that was unsafe for people. But I decided to say, hey man, this is my first time. So what exactly do you want?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I would rather take the second to ask a question than not. And I think basically the reason I like that part of like, the reason I recognized that so much was my officers trusted that I was going to make the right decisions. The incident command from another township trusted that we were going to make the right decisions. The guy, so whenever I ask that, I feel like I make a right decision by asking a question. So like, I guess the whole theme there is trust. You got to have trust in the guys that you're around. But it's not just fire related. I mean, you have to trust your training partners. You have to trust the people on the roads driving down the road. Like there's so much trust that we have in society already.
Yeah, that's a really good point. The trust transcends anything in particular, and it broadens to everything.
Right. Exactly.
Like if I'm driving after recording this podcast, I got to trust, like you said, on the roads.
Mm-hmm.
I have to trust that whoever's driving in the opposite lane of me is competent enough to not swerve over and hit me head on, and you
Exactly.
never know that.
Right. So that's really it. Is like, it was really cool though, like to see all the training work.
Yeah.
It's never cool to see a fire, because somebody's losing everything. But all the work and all the hard work over the last 8-9 months of learning the techniques of, it'd be minutia, like for us in the gym, exactly how to stretch your triceps or exactly how to stretch your quads out, like stuff that we learn early on, but actually seeing it work. Like whenever the first time you do a tricep extension and you feel like the different heads of your tricep actually squeezing, and you start to make that mind muscle connection. And this was kind of like a mind muscle connection. Mm-hmm. All the training, all the talking and the conversations and back and forth with my officers and the other newer people, because there's a lot of us newer people that just started. And then actually seeing it come into play where I didn't really have to think some of the stuff. Some of the stuff I did, but like, one particular point, they had, the guy that was backing me up said, hydro vent this room because the smoke was getting too heavy. And they were venting from the front, so we were pushing all the smoke back towards us. I didn't have to think at first. Like, it was just turn the nozzle to a fog pattern, put it on the window, and spray water. Like, I knew that was the steps. And I thought that was cool because I didn't think that I had retained as much knowledge as I did so far.
Yeah.
But, so, like, being able to actually help was cool. Like, and that was the recognizing that I can help.
And that's just furthering the notion that trust is earned.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to throw anybody in that type of a situation. They knew that you were prepared and you went through the certifications and the classes and all the work that you've put into this over the past several months.
Right.
That's just a manifestation of that. It's just indicative that you've put the work in and now you've earned the trust.
Right.
And I think that goes, into every aspect of life, that trust is so important, but you also have to be able to earn the trust.
Right.
And it's just not trustworthiness in the sense of, can I take someone's word for what they say or can I believe them? But trusting their capabilities. Like, so for me, a couple of the things that I'm invested in or have been invested in the past, like let's take coaching football. I always like to use sports analogies because they're
relevant too.
They're very relevant. And it's a nice way to get people to understand things with a little more clarity. So on a football field, when you review film and you do film breakdown, of a game previously, you'll notice that the cliche of football being a game of inches, it can be taken in the literal sense. Every play, it seems like, could be a touchdown for your team if one person were to just do the job that they were supposed to do. And a lot of times that breakdown happens because of someone not trusting someone else to do their job. So, an offensive lineman, in a zone blocking scheme, instead of going where he was supposed to go, saw someone else, didn't think the guy next to him was going to get him, so he went back for that guy. Meanwhile, the guy he was supposed to get comes through the line and has a tackle for a loss or sacks the quarterback.
I feel like that's kind of indicative to like what I always talk about, staying in your lane.
Yeah.
Know your lane and stay in it.
Yeah, you have to be able to do your job, and people have to be able to trust that you're going to do your job in order to do theirs.
Right.
And then the same thing I have in coaching all the time. Like when you coach an athlete or someone with their nutrition, every time I send someone nutrition updates or I put together a plan for someone, that's under the understanding of full adherence. I've said that multiple times, that when I do a diet plan, the results you're seeing, I assume those results are 100% based on you following the plan, or the results you're not seeing.
Right.
So I would change things if you're not seeing results, but I'm altering a plan that I trust that you're following. And if you're not, then the changes I make are irrelevant and unnecessary because you're not following the plan anyway. So I'm changing things to account for what we're seeing or not seeing, but I'm kind of blindly making changes if you're not following it.
Right.
So I think that trust in life is a huge thing. You have to be able to trust people, but then I think more importantly, you have to be able to put yourself in a position where people are able to trust you.
Right.
Not just from a moral or ethical character development thing, like, oh, I trust him, he tells the truth, but trust that you're going to do the job so then I can do my job. And you mentioned it with training partners. That's awesome. Like if I'm lifting a lot, I need to trust that my training partner's going to be able to spot me correctly. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, I'm dropping this weight on my head.
Right, exactly.
Or whatever.
Yeah, like physically.
Yeah.
It's so important to, and I don't know why I didn't think about it before, but because there's all kinds of areas that trust comes into play. But, trusting your training, trusting your partners, your brothers and sisters and everybody that you're doing things with, you have to be able to rely on. I think, there's that too. Like you're reliant on other people because you trust them.
And that just further strengthens what we talked about last week about being selfish. Mm-hmm. Again, we've talked about it about numerous times about how you need to be selfish and worry about yourself sometimes to make sure that you're making progress because you can't help others until you help yourself. Well, a lot of that is trust-based. If I'm going to trust Justin to do this podcast with me, I have to make sure that, he comes on here, doesn't use inappropriate language, doesn't say things that are controversial, doesn't act like a fool or whatever. Right. And then you do the same for me. You expect that I'm going to come up on this podcast, I'm going to conduct myself to a certain level of professionalism. I'm going to talk, about things that are relevant and not just talk for the sake of talking. Like, we have to trust each other. So if I worry about myself and I'm selfish, I'm going to kind of elicit a little bit more trust from other people, I think.
I like it.
So training, when I'm training hard, I need to make sure that I'm worrying about myself and training hard so that way I can be a good training partner for someone else too.
Right.
You just have to constantly be finding that balance of self-improvement and helping other people improve and finding the synergy between the two, because trust is kind of the connecting link between helping yourself and helping someone else.
Right. And that's why, and it's weird. We talk about, I said training partners, but I didn't think about it from the other shoe. Mm-hmm. I pick a training partner. When I first picked a training partner not years ago, it feels like years ago though, but a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, it was just predicated on somebody being there.
Yeah.
Somebody, because back then I didn't think that this sounds bad. I didn't think that I was worthy of somebody's time.
Yeah.
So anybody that would spend some time with me in the gym and become friends with me was awesome. Mm-hmm. Now, when I pick a training partner, I realize that, and it's subconscious because I literally just had this epiphany like right now. I realize that this person is relying on me just as much as I'm relying on them.
Uh-huh.
So when that person is struggling with a strength PR, a bench press mile mark for them, I'm not just going to sit back playing on my phone. I'm going to be standing over top of them. I'm going to be there to spot them. I'm going to let them grind it out. I'm going to be in their ear. I'm going to be in their face. They're going to know that it's unacceptable to quit until you can't go anymore.
Yeah.
Because you trusted me to let you know that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's why I think that's why I'm such a vocal person in the gym, even when I'm by myself, because it's just become second nature now.
Yep.
You know, because I'm loud now. Like I never used to be. Like a little bit. Like if we trained at the complex together and it was just us in there, you know, maybe. But in a crowded gym, I was never really like hooty hollery at first.
And I think part of that's probably comfortability,
Yeah.
being around other people, but then also comfortability with trust. So trust is one of those things where you address it early on and you think about it early on, but then once it's established, it's not really, at least in my mind, it's not really thought about too often.
Right.
Like when I'm driving, for example, I've been doing it for a long time, and I don't think as I'm driving, if I have trust issues with other people on the road, is this person going to swerve over and hit me as he's
Right.
approaching me? Like, I don't think about that stuff because it's just second nature now. Like, I don't think about if you're going to be a good training partner or if you're going to be a good co-host or whatever. I think that the trust initially, when it's established, you're thinking about it and you're cognizant of it. But after a while, trust is more or less assumed at that point.
Right.
Like, oh, I just know that he's going to do a good job and I don't even think about it.
I agree.
But then sometimes I think it's important to revisit it to make sure that you are still trustworthy in the sense of, am I trustworthy by helping my training partner out all the time? Or, because sometimes I think maybe you could make the counter argument too. I don't know. Maybe you can make the counter argument that getting too comfortable and having trust be established too long ago maybe you tend to drift away from it then. Because early on, you know, I know you're going to be a good training partner, but then maybe we get too monotonous where we come to the gym every day, do the same things every day, and it's just, you're going, then at some point you go through the motions and then, oh, maybe he's not as good of a training partner as he used to be.
Right.
So it could go both ways. I'm not really sure.
I'm not either, actually.
All I know is that the take home message really is that number one, trust is super important. And then number two is, in order to gain that trust, you also have to be selfish and worry about yourself. Make yourself worthy of someone being able to trust you.
Right.
Which, whether it's fighting a fire, being a good training partner, being a co-host for a podcast, or being a friend. I think that you have to do that because people are relying on you a lot more than you think. And then it's like you said, emotionally, physically, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not, and I don't think it's unheard of to kind of check yourself either. Like, or check your training partner, or check your you know, my brothers at the fire station, you know.
Yeah.
Make sure they know that I trust you.
Uh-huh.
All of you, everybody. Or make sure your training partner knows, like, this is your success is as important as my success to me.
Absolutely.
Because I'm not going to train with somebody every single day. I'm not spending a big portion of my time with somebody that I don't want to see successful, that I don't want to see get where they want to be. And I don't even care if their goals or their plan is different than mine. Like, we don't have to go the same direction to be on the same field, be in the same gym, be in the same moment. So as long as they know that I want them to be as successful as I want me to be successful, I feel like they're going to know they have my trust.
There's an interesting relationship too between trust and expectations as well. So what are your expectations for someone? Those are things that need to be put out there.
Yes.
Early on. So for me, you know, I think back to an individual I'm training right now who's getting ready for his first natural show. His name's Christian. And Christian
looking like a savage, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I the reason I say thank you that you compliment him is because I'm in charge of his training, his nutrition and stuff. But Christian and I started training, and I kind of told him that, hey, this is what we'll do. I will train you for free. Not only will I train you, but I'll let you train with me. But here are the expectations. Here is the standard. Don't deviate from this, because you won't be afforded this opportunity if you're not holding yourself accountable to this standard. So what I told him was, you know, you can be my training partner, but when we lift, I don't need you to go through the motions, because at the time I was getting ready for a show. So it was the summer as I just initially started my diet preparing for a fall show. And I told him that given the restrictions of the diet, there's going to be times where I don't want to lift, or I'm slow, or I'm dragging. You're going to benefit me because you're going to push me. I said, so I don't want you to just look at this as a free ride to learn things. I want you to push me this whole time, like in my face, in between sets. And it was awesome because Christian lived up to that.
Oh, yeah.
And he was very accepting of that. And, you know, it's not rude. I think that it's just when you put those standards out there, you say, this is the standard. We don't deviate from this no matter what. If I'm having a bad day, I'm going to rely on you to push me. If you're having a bad day, you're going to rely on me to push you.
Right.
And it goes both ways. And there have been instances early on where, you know, you hate to say it, but I had to redirect that and say, hey, you know, very straight up, you're not living up to the standard right now. You texting on your phone in between sets is not benefiting you, but then it's also not benefiting me. Right. So you can sabotage yourself, and I don't have control over that. I'm going to try to not let it happen. But then when you are not helping me or you're sabotaging me, then all of a sudden we may need to cut ties. So it's not gotten to the point, or was never to the point where I said we can't live together anymore. But there were instances where I had to pretty pointedly and even borderline aggressively remind him, this is the standard that we set from the beginning. If you don't want to adhere to that, that's okay. But then you're going to have to go elsewhere because this is the standard I set for myself. So we always talk about on other episodes about how important it is for you to surround yourself with people that you want to be successful and like-minded people. So if you're not one of those people that's going to live up to the standard that I set for myself, well, then it's probably not best if we hang out. And that's not a selfish thing necessarily. That's caring about other people too. Because if you have a player, I had this happen one time at a workout for football when I was coaching, where we had a particular athlete who was giving terrible effort. Okay. Maybe he had a bad day, maybe he was tired, whatever. And gave a couple cues to push and hopefully get some kind of a response where now he's pushing harder, he's giving effort like he should be. You know, I don't know if it was just him being lazy or what. Regardless, the couple cues didn't work. So I took him aside and I said, listen, here's what we're going to do. I said, you're going to go home right now. And I'm not mad. And I made sure to clarify from the beginning, I'm not mad at you right now. However, it'll get to the point where I'm mad because here's what's going to happen. I'm going to keep trying to push you, and for whatever reason, you don't have it today. Whether it's physical energy, mental energy, emotional energy, whatever. You got things on your mind. There's stuff going on at home. You're not here today. So what I want you to do is I want you to go home, and then we'll try tomorrow. Because if you don't come with it today and you stay here today, well, then I'm going to keep yelling. You're going to continue to do what you're doing, and I'm going to get mad at you for not listening. You're going to get mad at me because there's obviously a reason why you're not giving effort. And your teammates are going to get mad because it's lacking. It's not benefiting you. It's not benefiting me. It's not benefiting your teammates. Again, I'm not mad, but just go home, hit the reset button, and come back. And it's like when I, started the strength programming for our football team. Eventually, I developed what was called the timeout chair, and it was this chair that we would put in the weight room, and it was not meant to be, a babysitting thing or treat you like a child. But if I ask you to sit in that chair, that means you don't have the energy or the focus or the attitude to be in this weight room right now. So I'm going to ask you to sit in the timeout chair. And when you sit in the timeout chair, what I want you to do is I want you to think about where your level of accountability is at. If it's not up to standard, go home. Again, not mad. I'm just saying I'm going to get mad if you don't fix it. So either fix it or go home and then come back when you can fix it.
Right.
So I think that, setting the standard early on is really, really important.
Because you can only do so much for people. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make
100%. Yep.
So I really like that whole idea of, hey, I'm not mad at you, guy. But don't waste everybody else's time.
That's the hardest thing for me. Coaching, doing nutrition work, personal training, education, everything I do is trying to help other people. Mm-hmm. In education, you're trying to help people become more intelligent, understand more, be a better person, and be a better contributing member to society. In personal training, they have athletic goals. In coaching, they have athletic goals. In nutrition, they have physique or wellness or health goals or whatever. So I'm constantly doing things that other people, I am getting paid money to help other people do things with their life. And the hardest thing for me about the jobs that I do is not letting go and refusing to help people that don't want to help themselves. I'm getting better at it. but it's so difficult to push people or to not push people when they don't want to be pushed. And just know when it's time to count your losses and say, hey, this relationship probably isn't going to work. Because right now I feel like you're not helping yourself, and I feel like you're just digging a deeper hole.
Right.
That's hard for me. And I know it's hard for you too, because
terrible.
For you, at least with mine, I'm getting paid to do a lot of the help that I'm doing with other people, whereas you want to help people in the same regard and same capacity, but you're not getting paid for it. So then it becomes even more frustrating, where you have to say, you can't want to help somebody lose weight more than they want to help themselves.
I try.
I know.
I really do try, and I don't mean that to toot my own horn, but when I see somebody who looks like I did, or looks like they feel the way I felt,
mm-hmm.
or it's very obvious that they're heading in that direction.
Yep.
I almost feel compelled to try to figure out a way to address it with them.
Of course you do. And you can try. I'm not saying, when you work with someone or try to help someone out, if they don't respond 100% initially, just be done with them. You can try, but there needs to be a cutoff point where you realize that you can't waste mental energy or physical time on someone, because those are the two most valuable commodities that you have, are your time and your mental health. You can't waste them trying to get people to invest in themselves when they're clearly not going to do it.
Right. And that's a hard pill to swallow for me, because sometimes I wish that more people would have tried to invest that time in me years ago.
Yeah.
And
because you would have been one of the people who would have been receptive to it. I would have bought in, and said, hey, this guy's trying to help me. Heck
right.
Yeah. And I can say that with firsthand experience that you are that type of person because you did it with me.
Right.
In fact, not only did I try to help you, but you were proactive enough to approach me one day in the gym. You didn't know me. I didn't know you. You went up to this weird barefooted guy with a beard and said, hey, can you explain to me the form on this TRX squat? Because I got this workout and I'm not really sure how to do it. And then it sounds corny, but that was like the start of a friendship.
Yeah,
that has lasted forever. You know what I mean? That was that approaching one time. So I know that you're receptive to help. And I told you that with coaching, that's one of the things that I've done lately is, and I want to annotate this all and let people understand that you never give up on someone.
Right.
It's not giving up on someone, but at some point you have to be able to say this individual is not willing. It's like in a relationship. There's going to be a point if you're in a relationship where there's turmoil or fighting or whatever, where you can try to help your significant other, but if they're not willing to help themselves and change, you need to cut ties and it needs to be over.
Right.
So one of the things that I've talked about on previous episodes that I've done with coaching is I focus the majority of my energy on people that are going to give me their energy. So I help people that want to be helped. You give me 100%, I'm going to give you 100%. If you give me 90%, I'm going to give you 0.
Right, because there's no sense in going. Why do anything if you're not going to do it?
If you don't give me 100%, I'm not going to give you 100%.
Right.
It's all or nothing. You either get all of me or you get none of me. That's just how it has to work for the time being, because my schedule is too hectic. I'm invested in too many things, and all of my things are results driven too. When you're trying to help people, it's results driven. With my coaching, with my personal training, with my students, everything is results and data driven. I need to be able to show that I'm improving and that I'm helping you. So if you're not helping yourself, then we're both wasting our time. That's what it boils down to.
Yeah.
It's not me being selfish in that sense, but sometimes you just got to take it for what it is.
Yeah, you got to. I mean, you have to set boundaries and set limitations.
Yeah.
And let me rephrase that. Not boundaries and limitations. You have to set and hold a hard, fast line on your expectations.
Yeah.
In life, in general. Like, I'm not, like you've said this about dieting before. When you were in a severe calorie, deficit, preparing for a show, people used to ask you to go out to eat, etc. But now the expectation's there that when Charlie's in a prep, don't even ask him to go out to eat because he's not going to go.
Yeah, I'm just going to tell you now.
Yeah, so don't wait. Don't set yourself up for failure. Just know the expectations in the room.
Well, part of that's just clarifying it early.
Yeah.
So when you work with someone, like when I work with a team for strength and conditioning, or I work with an athlete, I tell them early on, and I'm very, very specific and very, very adamant about what I want. And I tell them, this is what I need from you, and this is what you're going to do. And if you're not going to do this, then I'm not going to work with you.
Yeah.
Because, I have a very good track record right now with the people that I train, the people that I coach, and I don't want you deterring or taking that track record down, or more or less my reputation of that track record down, because you're not doing what you need to do.
Yeah.
So then it goes full circle, and I have to be able to trust everybody that I work with. In order to trust everybody that I work with, I need to give them the expectations early on so they understand it. This is what you need to do, whether it's my training partner, Christian, whether it's you with the podcast, whether it's the athletes I train or whatever. This is the expectation. I need to trust that you're going to meet this expectation. If I can't trust you to meet it, then goodbye.
Yeah, goodbye.
Yeah.
I like it.
So
I mean, it's a hard, fast expectation, and everybody knows it. And you either play by the rules, or it's not even a cut people off thing. It's just I got to do me.
And I've known about this type of behavior and this type of mentality from other people. Like, I've had coaches that have done this to me.
Yeah.
And said, if you're not going to do this, then we don't want you to be a part of this team. Not to me specifically, but to every athlete.
Right.
I've had it happen from the time I could walk. I remember, to tell a funny story, I remember when I first started playing basketball. And it was in first grade. It was this program that they had at school called Junior Dribblers. So I was probably 6 years old at the time.
Yeah.
And what they did was they had it in the gym on Saturdays or Sundays, sometime on the weekend. And they would have these, like, you would lower the hoops down so you could shoot better. Because we were only, 5, 6, 7 years old. And they would lower the hoops down, and we would all, like, learn basic stuff, like how to pass, how to dribble, the fundamentals of learning. And after the very first day of it, I'll never forget this. I don't remember much from first grade, obviously, but I have this oddly specific and oddly detailed memory, very vibrant in my head. After the first day, we were gathered around the circle, and our athletic director because I went to a real small Catholic school up until 8th grade, when I eventually went to the public high school, because there was no private high school within a relatively close distance. Probably the nearest one was probably about 40 minutes, but that was hard, having two parents who work full time and then me playing every sport, my brother playing every sport. Just wasn't feasible logistically. So I was at this private school for up until 8th grade, and we had probably about 20 kids per class. I mean, it was really small, real tight-knit. And our athletic director, who was in charge of the program, was speaking to us. He was just talking about, the mentality it takes to be good at something, just your typical conversation that you would have with first and second graders or whatever the ages were. I just remember being in first. And he said that it was really important to understand that anybody and he used expletives, which was even more funny because, you're talking to a group of first graders. He said, and I'm paraphrasing here because I'm not going to repeat the exact words he said, but he said, if anybody tells you that the score doesn't matter, he said, when you go home to your parents and they tell you it's all about having fun, he said, they're not wrong. It is about having fun. But if they tell you that the score doesn't matter and it doesn't matter if you win or lose, tell them they're full of crap and ask them why the heck they have a scoreboard then. And it was funny looking back on it that he was that, used colorful language to explain it. He was that passionate about it, talking to a group of kids who have never picked up a basketball before. But what that did was that set the standard.
You got to win.
You have to win. If you're going to be a part of this, the score matters. The team matters. Winning matters. And there were no questions throughout the program as a result of that.
Right.
The expectation was winning.
So we won.
And so you won.
That's it.
And I thought that story was so cool and so funny, and I reminisce about it all the time. But the way to get trust with people, the way to establish good rapport with people and a winning culture in a successful place where everybody wins, figuratively speaking.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be literally winning a game. But if you want your clients to have success, if you want to be a good firefighter with a good fire department where people are efficient at their job, if you want to have a good podcast, all this success stuff, you have to be able to trust people.
Mhm.
People have to be able to trust you. And the easiest way to do that is to communicate expectations beforehand. And that way the trust will always be there.
Right.
If we know what we're doing.
Yeah, if you know what to expect, you know what to expect. You know what I mean? Like if I tell you what you can expect from me, you know that you can rely on that set of expectations. And then above, obviously, I may go above them expectations, but the bare minimum, this is what you're going to get no matter what. Even on my worst day, with the flu, with COVID, whatever, you're going to get whatever I tell you you're going to get from me.
And the
And that's not
podcast,
dead.
the podcast is a great example of that.
Yeah.
Where days where you were sick, days where I was sick, days where we were out of town, days where you were out of town, days where we were busy, days
Yep.
where we had this to do. We've released one every Saturday since we started over a year ago.
Yep.
We've done that. So that is the expectation. We clarified that from the beginning, and we're going to live to that expectation.
Yep. I agree.
And it's just that simple.
Yep.
Wow.
I think
that kind of wraps it up.
Yeah,
Huh?
I think so. I think setting expectations is the perfect spot.
Yeah.
And play to win.
So set expectations for yourself, set expectations for other people. Then eventually that's going to manifest itself to the point where not only are the expectations there, but then the trust is there
Right.
as well.
Yep.
All right. So with that, we have come to the end of another episode of the Chasing Dreams podcast with Charlie and Justin. This has been episode 61. We appreciate everybody tuning in, and we hope to listen or hear back from you guys next week.
Unbreakable, unstoppable, I'm pushed to